Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're having a great week. The sun is out. Finally, spring is here. I had my shades on earlier. I taught Gareth A. Davis everything he knows, but anyway, that's another story. Right, there is a fight coming up, and I'm not talking about Canelo versus Munguia, although I'll probably do a preview of that. The one that I'm really looking forward to is actually on Monday, Bank Holiday Monday if you're in the UK, and it features my favourite fighter, NAOYA INOUE of Japan, defending his undisputed super-bantamweight titles at the Tokyo Dome. This will be the 6th, I think. Is it 6th of May? I forget. But anyway, it's Monday. I think it's the 6th. Anyway, yeah. So he's defending his belts against none other than LUIS Nery, who comes into the fight with 35 wins, 27 KOs, one defeat, which was a stoppage to Brandon Figueroa, and no draws. Now, Neri is 29, so he is in his prime, you could say. He's a 5'5" southpaw, has held belts at bantamweight and super bantam, I believe. Inoue is now 31, which in the old days would be considered old for a lower weight fighter, but did he look old to you in his last few fights? Definitely not. Definitely not. But there is bad blood between these two. In fact, you could say there's bad blood between LUIS Neri and every Japanese boxing fan, just about, because this actually goes way, way back to, the dark ages, when Neri had two fights with Shinsuke Yamanaka. Shinsuke Yamanaka, that's his name, yeah. Okay. And these were, one was in 2017, one was in 2018. And just to give you a little bit of a backstory thing, the first fight, which took place in Kyoto, Shinsuke Yamanaka came in undefeated, 27 wins, no defeats, 2 draws. And this was for the WBC bantamweight title. And Neri won the fight. He won the fight on a 4th round TKO and looked pretty decent doing it. But the old ogre reared its head, which was PEDs. He failed a PED test. The WBC loves its Mexican fighters. It is without question biased towards them. And so Neri trotted out the old tainted meat excuse. And of course, what else could you decide? It was going to be, LUIS Neri, keep your belt, mate. We believe you. Okay. Same thing that happened with Canelo. Absolutely shameless, the WBC are. I can't, especially when it comes to Mexican fighters. They are so unbelievably biased. It's a disgrace. Anyway, they did say at least you've got a rematch Yamanaka. So in March of 2018, there was a rematch. Again, it was over in Japan. And LUIS Neri missed weight. Bear in mind, these are bantamweights, okay? Bantamweight, 118 pounds. He missed weight by 5 pounds. 5 pounds. A third of a stone when you're talking little men. But the fight went ahead, and guess what happened? Let's have a think. What could have happened? Oh, I know. Neri knocked out Yamanaka in 2 rounds. Yes. So he actually did it twice as quickly as he did the first fight. And Yamanaka, who prior to meeting Neri was undefeated, had 2 early stoppage defeats on the bounce. But there was the failed PED test, which he got away with. There was the coming in way over the weight limit. And in fact, Yamanaka retired. He didn't have any more fights. And the Japanese boxing public, they had themselves a real bete noire, someone that they could really hate. And that person was LUIS Neri. And now Neri moved up to super bantam. He remained undefeated, moved up to super bantam, and in fact, he won the vacant super bantamweight world title. And guess what ruling body it was? Of course, it has to be the WBC, doesn't it? But he did win it off Aaron Almeida, who's a good fighter, who at the time was undefeated in 25 fights. But interestingly, after that fight, Eddie Reynoso, who trained Neri, parted ways with him. And that's normally a very bad sign, And probably it you know, I don't have any inside information, of course, but it was probably the fact that, you know, I mean, if you're missing weight by 5 pounds when you're a bantamweight and you're failing drug tests, and it doesn't hint at the most disciplined of lifestyles, the most disciplined of boxers. And if there's someone that we know insists on discipline from his fighters, it's Eddie Reynoso. If you remember what happened to Ryan Garcia, they parted ways because Garcia wasn't doing all he should do. And to be honest with you, you know, Neri, up to that point, I mean, he'd beaten Juan Carlos Baiano, who had been wiped out by NAOYA INOUE in, was it a round or 2 rounds? Very early anyway. Well, it took 9 rounds to get rid of him, for LUIS Nery to get rid of him. And he looked okay. He looked pretty decent, but it's his out of the ring attitude seemed to be what separated him from Eddie Reynoso, from that philosophy. You know, he had win over Joe Arroyo, who was past his best, but nevertheless, you know, I mean, that was in 2019. He was still winning fights. Don't get me wrong, he was still winning fights. And the win over Almeida could be said to be a very good win on paper. But there was just something, you know, he's out of the ring. The rumours about him out of the ring were that he just didn't live the life. Now, invariably, if that's the case, and it seems to have been the case, bearing in mind that he was, what was he, like 24, 25 at the time, so he was a young man. And when you're that age, you can take off weight very quickly. You don't have to live the life, but suddenly the weight sort of falls off you once you start training. And, you know, when you get to 30, it's a very different story, trust me. And if you get older, it never comes off. But there were hints that if you live that life, at some point it's going to come back and bite you in the arse. Now, in his next fight, having beaten Almeida, he faced another undefeated fighter. Having already won the WBC super bantamweight title, the vacant title, he then took on Brandon Figueroa, who was undefeated, 21 wins and a draw. And he came in as a favourite, I think it's very, very fair to say. And this was a very, very good fight, but in round 7, down goes Neri from a vicious body shot, and he couldn't get up. Either he couldn't or he wouldn't get up. He knew where he was. You could see from his eyes. But that had been a sort of nip and tuck, give and take fight up to that point. I think I can't remember what the scorecards were, but they were close, because I remember that fight vividly. It was a very, very good fight. And so, lo and behold, the nemesis of Japanese boxing had lost his unbeaten record. And at the age of, I think he was probably about 26 at the time, maybe 25, 26. Clearly the bad lifestyle had come back to bite him in the rear end. He then rebuilt, and in fairness, he rebuilt well, because he then faced Carlos Castro, won a split decision over 10 rounds, and that was for a couple of the, invariably with WBC, one of their silly trinkets, silver title or international title, whatever the hell it was. Castro at the time was undefeated in 27, and Neri came back with a good win. And he seemed, with subsequent fights, to have buckled down, and maybe the penny dropped. Maybe he was forced to mature. Maybe that defeat was what was necessary to make him realise you can't do this game and cut corners. It's too tough. At the highest level, especially in the lower weights, when you've got so many talented fighters who, in order to make money, have to fight each other. The penny dropped, and he seemed to sort of start to take the game seriously. And this culminated in a fantastic fight last year with Azat Hovhannissian, in which Neri won on an 11th round stoppage, and in fact, he showed some heart in that fight. He actually, because he showed that he wasn't just a front runner, front foot fighter. He could actually stand and fight and get through those, bad moments. I mean, Hovhannissian was on the floor. I can't remember what round, but he got up. And again, I mean, there were no losers. It was one of those fights where there were no losers. It was a terrific tear up. Hovhannissian was 21-3 coming in, 21 wins, 3 defeats. But again, probably his stock rose, and certainly Neri's did. And so we now find ourselves with Neri finally facing NAOYA INOUE, because INOUE, when Neri was down at bantamweight, there were, even though INOUE went and won the World Boxing Super Series or whatever it's called, and unified the division, became undisputed and so on, before he lost to Figueroa, Neri was sort of on the periphery of that, almost with his face pressed against the window, looking in, almost waiting for the winner, which was destined to be INOUE, which didn't really surprise anyone. Some of us won money on that. But having lost, he had to rebuild. So finally, they're going to meet at super bantam. And there's no doubt about it, bad blood exists. INOUE is kind of fighting for Japanese boxing. In actual fact, I want to say 2021, I think it was, Neri, I believe, was banned from boxing in Japan. That's how seriously they took it. The commission, which is a strict commission, as it should be, didn't take kindly to Neri's antics. Failed PED test, which he got away with, and obviously they have to be very political with the ruling bodies, and but they can't have been happy with the WBC the commission can't have been happy letting Neri off the hook. And of course, coming in 5 pounds overweight at bantam is just sinful. And I think they sort of blamed him for Yamanaka's demise, because Yamanaka were undefeated. He lost the 2 fights to LUIS Nery, and then he retired. And they kind of viewed Yamanaka as being wronged, severely wronged. They don't like cheats in Japan. They certainly don't like it when you come in overweight. They pride themselves on professionalism, on respectability. That's a big part of the culture. And they view Neri as the boxing devil incarnate. So I suppose it was inevitable once Inoue beat Fulton, mopped up the other belts with Sapales, that he would have to fight Neri, even though Neri was banned from Japan. That it was too much of a temptation. Get him in a ring with Inoue, and let's all enjoy him having the crap beaten out of him. That seems to have been the Japanese boxing public's desire, and they've got it. They've got it, because on Monday, Inoue will face Neri. Now, you know about Inoue. I don't have to go on about Inoue. You know all about him. He is my favourite fighter. Now, is he the best fighter pound for pound in the world? You see, Crawford looked so magnificent against Spence, but there is inactivity there. Usyk is probably a little bit past his best, maybe just slightly past his best, although he's magnificent. I got no problem with anyone who says Inoue is the best fighter in the world. And there is this idea that he's all power. He most certainly has power. He hits horrendously hard, but do not believe that he's just a slugger. It's kind of like the prime Mike Tyson. Everyone said Mike Tyson has this reputation for being an extremely exciting banger, which he was, but they forget, if you look at the very early Mike Tyson fights going up to certainly 85 to 88, the skills, the speed, the poise, the balance, low center of gravity, combination punching, magnificent. He had magnificent skills, and so does NAOYA INOUE, skill-wise. Never mind the power. The power's there, of course it is, but you've got to set it up and land it. Neri, I think, since turning over a new leaf after the Figueroa fight, has definitely somewhat redeemed himself. And he's 29 now, so he's probably as good as he's going to get. Inoue's 31. Neri is a southpaw. I think is he slightly taller than Inoue, or are they roughly the same size? Maybe an inch or two in him, but nothing major. Inoue, an orthodox fighter. How's this fight going to go? Well, I cannot bet against Inoue. I cannot. And I just think Inoue is better in every department. One in particular, which I'll get to in a moment. But I think, I say I'll get to it in a moment. Why don't I just cut to the chase? Body punching. Inoue is a tremendous body puncher, an absolute savage to the body. And I will be mystified when you consider that Neri's one defeat was to a body punch against Figueroa. I will be mystified if Inoue doesn't start from that opening bell looking for the body. And again, his skills are such that he will set it up. He won't make it too obvious. If he hits you, if you put the earmuffs on, he hits you. You're going to get stung even if he hits your gloves. But he's going to be looking to land to that body to chop up Neri. Now, Neri does have a punch. He has good skills, first of all. He's a southpaw. Does that make a difference with Inoue? Possibly, if you use it. It's how you use it, isn't it? It's the angles you give and, the footwork that you've got. But I don't see Neri being able to slip and slide where Inoue is concerned. I think Inoue is going to be ultra pumped for this fight. I think he's going to come out with his usual aggression. He's going to be looking. He's going to be constantly jabbing because it's one of the many things he's underrated in is his jab. He's going to be coming forward, hanging everything off the jab. Big hooks to head to body, body to head. His feet are very quick. Inoue. Neri has a slightly more languid style, but again, as I was about to say, does hit hard. And yes, if you're going to be as cavalier as Inoue is, okay, yeah, he's been hit a few times. Tapales clipped him a couple of times. Even Fulton had, I think, one or two tiny little moments where he was able to find Inoue. And we do know that Inoue can be hit because Donaire, although Donaire himself was a brilliant fighter, he was able to break Inoue's eye socket. Inoue's chin is magnificent. Never really seen him wobbled. Or have we? Don't think so. I can't remember offhand. Whereas we have seen Neri chopped down to the body. I have no doubt there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I'll be amazed if Neri wins this fight. He is a decent, improved fighter, a more disciplined fighter now. But I see Inoue having too much of everything, too much power, too much spite, too much intensity in front of his own people in the Tokyo Dome. Was it 50,000 people there? He's going to be banging to head, double fit. They're not just going to be individual punches. They're going to be the usual salvos, head to body, body to head, body, head, body. But he's going to be coming. He's going to, as the old saying goes, he's going to hit Neri so many times. Neri will think he's surrounded. And Neri, for a few rounds, for 2 or 3 rounds, if he uses his feet, might be able to hang with him. But I see NAOYA INOUE chopping down LUIS NERY with body punches for a knockout in about 5 rounds. I'm going to go for the 5th round. Inoue to knock out LUIS NERY in 5 rounds. Too much of everything. And you watch the celebration afterwards, not just from Inoue, but from the whole of Japanese boxing. They'll love it when Neri gets his arse handed to him. But then he is a Mexican warrior. He is a Mexican fighter. Okay. We'll see. Anyway, what do you think? Who do you think wins? Do you rate Inoue as highly as I do? If you think he's going to beat Neri, what round? Or maybe you're picking points. Do you think Neri will spring the upset? Perhaps you do. Perhaps you've obviously probably seen if you haven't seen it, go and see it. The Hovhannissian fight, brilliant fight, one of the greatest fights of last year, certainly. But have a look at it and tell me what you think. As always, thank you for your time. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new, and please hit the like button and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. And I'm looking forward to this fight. Am I ever? Not half. Take care. Bye for now.